Okay.
This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Theories and Queries with Steve Valdez. And Steve, you contacted me, or I contacted you a little over a year ago, because I was told that you are a man of many thoughts. And I love it because since you've been sending us your theories and queries, and we've been posting them on newclevelandradio.net, um, I knew that this was a true podcast that we should be doing because we all have thoughts and we all come up with a reason for why things happen. So tell me a little bit about your background. What made you decide to start writing like this?
Well, Karen, a couple of years ago, I reconnected with a cousin of mine that I hadn't seen in decades or heard from, and we were just texting back and forth in order to kind of catch up on what we were into, what we liked, etc. We would ask each other these little three-word questions. I would say car or truck, and she would say truck, and then she would say red or blue, and then I would say blue or red. And we went back and forth for a while, and then it kind of dawned on us that one-word answers weren't cutting it. So we started chatting a little bit more, and as it turned out, I realized I had some pretty strong opinions about some of these things, and I started just writing them down. And all of a sudden, I blinked, and I had 15 or 20 written down, and another, dozen in my head. So I knew your brother, Gary. I met him through Scrabble Club, and I knew he had a podcast. So, I mean, a podcast, but also a blog. And I asked him how I could get involved in that, and he turned me on to you.
Well, we're really glad because I learn a lot from your theories. And what I'm learning is to be open and aware to other people's ideas, um, which many of us have closed ourselves off to. You know, there's so much. Um, there's so much sound going on in this world today that sometimes we just tend to like close our ears and whatever is in our head is the only answer to things. But I think if people will come to your page at newclevelandradio.net, it is called Thoughts, Theories, and Queries. And so let's talk about one of them. Which one do you want to start with today?
Well, I wanted to start with theory number four, an older one, um, about baseball. Initially, I didn't really have a plan, a theme, a way to connect all these things. I just thought they were random thoughts in my head. But as I looked back at all these, I recognized that I put everything in three categories. I have things that I like, but for some reason, something about it pisses me off. And then things that I don't like and just kind of piss me off in general. And then situations that happen, news that I read, something that I find out about, something I've experienced that somehow also pisses me off. So not that there's a common thread there or anything, but um, it seems that everything fell into one of those three categories. And this was one of my earlier ones that, I mean, I love baseball, but something upset me about it, the rule changes, all that kind of stuff. And this was written um, about a year and a half ago, prior to the 2020 season baseball, and prior to all the new rule changes that are happening. And this is about changes and things like that. But I mean, I could write another one today about about what's going on now,
Right.
but I won't. I won't. I'll save that for another time. But here you go. This is theory number four: baseball. Leave it alone. Baseball has been around for almost half a century, and like most sports, it has had its share of equipment upgrades, team realignments, and rule changes. The pitcher's mound has been raised and lowered. Teams have jumped from one league to another. Baseballs have been juiced and unjuiced. But let's not open up that wound. Though sometimes annoying, these changes are bound to occur from time to time. But what makes them tolerable is that they originate from Major League Baseball itself or the Players Union. My point is that changes are made by the league and for the league. And then someone allowed non-baseball folks to have an opinion. Announcers, columnists, the quote unquote casual fan, and their opinion was universal. The game's too long, the game's too slow, there are not enough runs being scored, there are not enough home runs, too many strikeouts. Nails on a chalkboard, people, nails on a chalkboard. They say that more people would watch the game if there were a time limit on it, or if only a limited number of extra innings were allowed. Stop already. Where to begin? First of all, these complaints are not trying to make baseball better. They're trying to make their lives and jobs easier. A faster pace and fewer extra innings would make the announcer's job, which is basically an ad lib infomercial of the game, much easier because they wouldn't have to work so hard to make up the little anecdotes for the listener to enjoy. I guarantee you, if they were getting paid by the hour and not by salary, we wouldn't hear a peep out of them on this issue. And the casual fan, why would anybody even care about the casual fan? By definition, they only tune into the game when they're bored with everything else. Nothing else to binge watch on Netflix. The cooking channel is showing a baking show, and I don't bake. All of my texties are really annoyed at me right now. So they turn the game on and they say, "What a boring sport." I would totally watch it more if it was only about an hour long. None of them have making the game of baseball better as a priority. It's all about their own agenda. There are reasons that no time clock exists. Baseball is a game of strategies. Each pitcher has certain strengths and weaknesses, as does each batter. As those qualities change, and those qualities change as the games go on. After several innings, the pitcher gets tired, the batter learns his tells, the fielders realize the batter's tendency and where they're most likely to hit the ball, depending on whether he's a lefty or a righty. Are there runners on base? Is this a day and night game? What's the air temperature? What's the elevation of the field? These and many more are all the variables that are taken into account on every pitch. Both teams set up their players accordingly, wait for the pitch and the result thereafter. Then based on that, make an adjustment, and then do it again. Baseball is not a sprint, it's a half marathon. Extra innings make it a full marathon. If all you can see is the score or how many times the ball leaves the park, then not only are you missing the entire point of the game, you are in no position to force your self-centered opinions onto the baseball community. I am part of that community, and I will fight for baseball. Not because I love it, and I do, but because I get it. Leave baseball the hell alone.
I love it. Love it. So, it's interesting. So when I read this the first time and I put it on the website, I also happen to love baseball, mostly because I have a son who lives and dies for the sport, and he knows it inside and out. Um, and he too, when he watches it intently. When he sees that pitcher move in a certain way, he knows where that ball is going to go and how that hitter is going to either, lob it out or totally miss it. I don't see it quite like that, but I agree with you. Why are we changing something that was created a long time ago? Yes, there have been modifications, but you're right. It is a strategy. How am I going to hit that ball? Where am I going to hit it? How fast am I going to run? Am I going to bunt it? Do I put myself in a position that 4 balls are called so that I get to walk? Those are all things that everybody on that field has to understand. So when you wrote this, what was happening in your life regarding baseball? Were there changes at that time in the game?
Yeah, at that time they were talking about this was I believe it was either late 2019 or early 2020, and the season was coming up again, and every year they do the same thing. They talk about, well, these are the changes we could put into effect, and most of them revolved around the concept that there was something wrong with baseball and it needed to change. Sometimes you change over the course of decades for different reasons. You build dome stadiums because you don't want to freeze your butt off in the cold.
Right.
Some things are legitimate like that, but it seemed to all come from people not directly involved in the game, people that were watching it, and it was somehow to make the get more butts in the seats, or maybe not even that, maybe just get more younger people to watch it. They're always looking to increase revenue and get more people to watch it, interested. But some of these things that they're coming up with, even now, it's amazing. Some of the things they put into effect for 2020 were because of the virus, and some of them they want to keep into this year. But it's almost like they went into a third grade classroom and they said, okay, kids, you guys know what baseball is. What would you like to do to make it more fun? And one kid raises his hand and says, I went to a game the other day and it was long and boring. And then they started playing another game. They called it a double header, and it was just so boring. What if the games were only maybe 7 innings long instead of 9? Yeah. And that's one of the things they're looking at doing this year. It's I don't know. To me, it's ludicrous, and it just changes the game of baseball too much to cater to these people. So
I totally get it. So before we go on to the next one, I just want to ask you, in 2020, they instituted this new thing where when you go into extra innings, okay, the runner starts on second base.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think they asked a third grader, what else could we do? And they said, well, extra innings are boring and they take forever. If what if somebody didn't even have to bat? He just kind of walked onto the field and stood on second base, and we start every inning with somebody on second base. I don't know where. I don't know where it comes from, but that's what it seems like. Well, if we do that, then things will go faster. Maybe we can, but it's just such a departure from the game itself. I mean, just to randomly put somebody on base.
Yeah. You're supposed to earn that base.
Yes, exactly.
No earning when you started it, when you just place somebody there. So I'm glad we sort of think along the same lines. Although if people who are listening disagree, feel free to write us at newclevelandradio.net. Give
Absolutely.
us your theory on it.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure Steve will find something else to write about.
Yeah, I'm sure I will.
So give us another one that you've sent to us.
Another one is another older one, and this is a concept that I've had for a long time, since I was in school. They're about spelling, and I remember hearing all the time growing up and in school and even in college. Either they give you an assignment and they say, okay, spelling counts. Okay, in this assignment, you got to write a paper, you got to do this, spelling counts, spell everything right. Or they'll give you an assignment, maybe come up with a theme for a paper, and they'll say, well, just give me the theme, spelling doesn't count. Just tell me what I want to hear, we'll go from there. And over the years, I've realized that spelling really does count. Pretty much all the time. Saying spelling doesn't count and telling somebody to write something is like a professor giving a calculus problem or a physics problem and saying, don't show your work, don't worry about it, just give me the answer. It doesn't make any sense. So I wrote this one called Spelling Always Counts. And I had this thing when I was younger, that I had these basic tenets of life that I professed. If anybody asked me, if anybody cared. One of them was that math is hard, period. And I have a theory about that too, but another time. Another one is spelling always counts. And I ended up writing something about it, and there you go. All right, let's find it. Okay, this is actually theory number 1. Spelling always counts. This was one of my first theories from way back in the day, before cell phones, before emojis. But even with the plethora of different ways to communicate now, my original statement remains true. The first thing that jumps out in a text or email or even a birthday card is a misspelled word. It might as well be highlighted. Then the reader, consciously or subconsciously, wonders, was the person in a hurry and didn't want to bother correcting it? Did they know it was misspelled and were too lazy to change it, or not know how to spell? The person reading the communique is not only wasting time trying to figure out what the problem is, they're also making a subtle judgment on the sender as to their level of intelligence. This also applies to abbreviated texts and emojis. What if somebody is flirting with you inappropriately? Imagine that. And instead of saying LMA, leave me alone, you accidentally typed LMAO, laughing my ass off. When you thought you were discouraging him, you were actually encouraging him. Same with emojis. What if you're trying to impress somebody and you think that you're sending him a smiley face with a hand waving, and you accidentally send him a smiley face with one hand picking his nose? Okay, you're probably thinking that I'm making a huge deal out of nothing. The fact is, nobody thinks twice about spelling when they read something that has no errors. Nobody says, wow, there wasn't one spelling mistake in that. But they do notice when there's a mistake. The bottom line here is that everybody makes typos all the time. All I'm saying is take the time to check your work. It shows that you care about how you come across to people. It doesn't take that long, and it can keep you from being thought of as less than you actually are.
It's interesting. You're involved in Scrabble, and when I do my brother's Scrabble podcast, we talk about the fact that we think we know all these words, and we think we know how to spell them. And when we were in grade school, we were given a list of words, and we were told to say them, to write them, to say them again, and write them again. None of us understood what this process was about. Why did we have to keep repeating it? But as we get older, we realize that the more we use something and we do it right one time after another, we learn it and
Right.
we do things right. But I've also realized, like you, that because of spell checkers and grammar checkers, um, and uh, all these different forms of language that are going on in our society, that we all assume that when we are writing a letter, everything is caught and is perfect. We don't look for those, red underlines or blue underlines for grammar. We just say, oh, it's okay. It's what I wanted to say. And maybe it is. But I think we have to go back and read what we've written, make sure that's what we meant to say, and maybe put a little notation on it, that even though you may think there are misspellings in here or there are words that you wouldn't use, this is my language. And if we understand that or accept that, we still may not like it, but it's like, okay, if this is how the person wants to be seen, that's fine. But if we don't know that, you're right. We make these assumptions that the person isn't educated, doesn't care, or has no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And it's really almost no excuse with spell check. And like you said, words are underlined. And um, it's so easy to make everything right now. Before you had to go to the dictionary and look something up and you couldn't find it because you didn't know how to spell it anyway. And it's just so easy to get it all right now. And people still don't do it. And you're same thing as what you said. A lot of times you'll go back to correct a word and you'll see that what you were trying to say wasn't what you were really trying to say. So you change it and you fix it. So, looking over what you've written before you send it is just kind of makes sense. It's just a good thing.
Absolutely. And there's a reason why we're taught how to spell in school. We're taught the difference between words when we're in school. And I know as a student, a lot of times you just don't want to listen to it. You want to think you're right, you know it all. But there comes a time when we have to go back and revisit those rules. Um, and the other thing that you mentioned in this is that if we aren't speaking clearly to our audience, they are not going to understand what our tone is. So it may
Right.
be, and it's maybe one thing that we've spelled something wrong, but if it comes across in a negative tone, they're going to see something totally different in it. So how does spelling really help you in the game of Scrabble?
Well, I mean, it's all about spelling. I mean, uh, a lot more, much more so than about definitions. People want to knock Scrabble because they say, well, you don't really have to know what anything means. You just have to know how to spell words. Well, I mean, that's the game. The game isn't a game of definitions.
Right.
It's a game of spelling, and it's crucial because you know that a word is a word. Oh my gosh, I remember one time in the Scrabble club with Gary, I'm playing this person who's way better than me, and beating me all game. At the very end, it's my turn. There's no more tiles in the bag. I have a 7-letter word on my rack, and I can put it on a triple word score, attach it to another word, get 100 and something points, and beat this person and win. Okay. So I have a blank in my tile, and the word I have is Vaseline, and Vaseline is a legitimate word in Scrabble. But I didn't know how to spell it, so I had VAS blank LINE, and I just could not figure out what came after the S. I'm thinking in my head, I know Vaseline's voice. Is it O? Is it an E? Going crazy here. And of course, there's a timer, and she's staring at me, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So I just laid the word down, Vaseline, and I just said, okay, I win. And she said, well, what's the blank? And I said, oh my God. And I said, I think I said O, and it's E. And she said, okay. As soon as I said O, she said, she raised her hand to Gary and said, spell check. So of course he came over and said, okay, it's not an O, you spelled it wrong. And if you spell something wrong, you got to pull it off,
right.
Pull the word off. And then she played something, won the game. I felt like an idiot, but just little things like that. In Scrabble, it's crucial.
Absolutely.
It's crucial. Gary is a big bluffer in Scrabble.
Yes, he is.
He loves that. And he'll come up with a word you've never heard of in your life, and you're looking at it, and he's staring at you with this poker face and saying, well, what do you want to do? You want to challenge me on this word or what? And I'm like, oh my God, it's probably a word. I've never heard of it, and he just made it up in his head, but I mean, it looks great, it looks, and it sounds great, and it makes sense that it would be a word. So it's spelling is Scrabble. Spelling is Scrabble. Scrabble is spelling.
Absolutely. So do you have one more you want to share with us today?
Sure. There was one I had right here. This is a shorter one. I consider myself a man of science. I have a degree in physics. I've always loved physics. But I read a lot. I study a lot of things. I study religion. I've read a lot about different religions all my life, and I get in any discussion with anybody about science and religion, and I'm fine. I don't argue. I mean, I don't get upset. I don't get mad. We just chat about it, and they say their opinion. I say my opinion. But one of the bigger debates in life, over the last so many centuries, is God versus the Big Bang. What creationists versus scientists. So this theory kind of evolved from that. I have my own theory about things, obviously, and this was just another one that it's just my opinion. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I think too many people these days, it's their opinion is correct, and you have to either convince them that they're wrong or admit that they've convinced you that you're wrong. And I think people like that just really want to more argue than get their point across. They just like to argue. But this is my take on it. This is theory number 16, God versus the Big Bang.
Okay.
If this were titled God versus Religion, I could have written pages and pages and kept adding new material as I read or learned it. For the sake of brevity, I chose this one particular comparison. Is it as the religious community believes that God always was and always will be, or is it as the scientific community believes that in the beginning there was nothing, a void, then the Big Bang occurred and the universe began? People have been debating this for a long time. Theologians and physicists, priests and lay people, church ladies and science geeks. One of the problem is that in a lot of arguments and discussions, the two parties believes that one side has to be right, the other side has to be wrong. One of my favorite Albert Einstein quotes is, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science, blind." Science and religion are not mutually exclusive. Both can exist simultaneously. And in the case of God versus the Big Bang, my take on it's fairly simple. God created the Big Bang. So
somebody did, something did. So
yeah,
well, be
yeah.
God. Absolutely.
And so, I mean, scientists can debate that, other people can, that's fine. But to me, it just kind of put it all together. I believe Einstein was right. You can't, it isn't just about, I only believe in one science, I only believe in religion, and the other one is meaningless. And I think if you look at it this way, you can include both. You can, you're not giving in, you're not caving in, you're coming up with something that makes sense and that people don't have to fight about. But that was just my take on it.
Well, as people come to your page and they read these theories, again, it's really important that we do this with an open mind. Nobody has to be right. Nobody has to be wrong. It's your thought process. And one of the things we've been talking a lot about on New Cleveland Radio is that our thoughts come to us from a very early age. We're taught so many things as infants, toddlers, and through the years. And some of it we remember, regularly. Some of it all of a sudden just comes to us out of the blue. And, we remember a day and a time when maybe we were influenced by something. But just because our parents told us it was so, and our teachers told us it was so, doesn't mean that we have to follow suit. But what it means is we got to take that information and do the research and see how it really applies. So your theory, God versus the Big Bang, you don't have to be a religious person to read this and understand it, because there is something out there spiritually that we all feel. And, I'm so grateful that you're doing this because, again, it opens my eyes to listen to people more clearly.
Thank you.
And I know that we all need this right now. I mean, we need to heal. We've been through a lot, and I know you're out there in California, where California is slowly trying to get back to normal. Here in Cleveland, we've sort of been back to normal for a while, but I still don't feel really safe. Until I get my second vaccine, and I know more people have been vaccinated, I'm still going to be careful where I go and what I do. But social media, Zoom, podcasting is bringing us all together. And again, there's that opportunity to listen, become aware, and accept people for their differences. I mean, it's about time.
Yeah, that's true. And everybody's got opinions. Everybody's got ideas. These last 4 years under Trump it was very divisive. Of course, everybody, you either love the president or you hate him, but it really divided the country, quite a bit. I think if Trump would have been elected another 4 years, we would have had a civil war. People just would have went berserk. It doesn't have to be, either agree with me or you're an idiot, which is what so much of the media and what I hear is telling you, you have to have my opinion. This is why I'm right. And what I try to do is, everything I write is my opinion and what I think and what I believe. And I try to explain why I feel that way and give examples, and not so much. In college, I took a speech class, and you could either give a speech to convince or a speech to inform, and it practiced putting your point across, but specifically to change the audience's mind and make them agree with you. And then other speeches were just, well, this is what I'm telling you, just take it or leave it. And that's what I want. That's what I'm trying to do. I'll give you my opinion and my take and why I feel this way and examples and life experiences. And this is, what had me come to this conclusion. Take it or leave it, and if you leave it, then you leave it. If it's thought provoking, then that's the best that I could ask for. If it makes you think a little bit, if it makes you, disagree with me and say, wait a minute, I don't think that. I think this and this. Then I've provoked a thought, and that's good. It's all good.
Well, I remember back in my high school days, my sophomore year in high school, I decided to join the debate team because my parents used to call me Sarah Barnhart. They said I was the dramatic one. And I did all my research. My team did all their research, and we knew what we were going to say. And the other school, their team basically decided that it wasn't going to be about research, but it was going to be basically opinionated. And they came across stronger than we did. We just standing our guard. This is what we know, and here are the facts. And they would go, yeah, but, and, basically theorize, but not tell us why they were theorizing.
Right.
And they won. And I remember afterwards going to my coach, crying my eyes out. I was the only girl on the team. And I said, I did it right. I followed all the rules. Life isn't fair. And he looked at me and he said, absolutely. Now remember that going forward.
Wow.
It's how you are perceived. You can have all the facts. You can show all the scientific facts. But if the other side doesn't want to believe them and they come across in a different tone, they're going to win. And so it's, again, as I started to say earlier, it's not about winning or losing. It's about sharing, becoming comfortable, and, coming to an agreement of this is my idea, that's yours. Can they come together, or are they going to collide like the Big Bang Theory?
Right.
Well, again, I want to thank you for your first podcast of the year. We will continue to do this monthly. I am looking forward to it.
Me too.
And, I'm looking forward to some new theories to put on the page as well.
Absolutely. They're coming.
All right. Have a great day. Don't work too hard today, okay?
Nah.
All right.
Thanks, Karen. We'll see you around.
Bye-bye.
Bye.